Hello, how's it going? It's Miguel again. Woohoo! I'm drinking this grape juice, grape drink, which I really like. It has 0 calories, but I think it's Skittles brand, so it tastes like Skittles. Loving it. I uh, I tend to drink in general non-caloric drinks. I learned a long time ago that it's very easy to take in unnecessary calories if you drink them. In fact, I don't know how I got this idea. Oh, maybe I do. I think when I was a kid, I used to like milkshakes and things like that. And so, if you look at the calorie count for a milkshake, they easily top 800 calories, for most milkshakes. And at least, and that's like a half a day's calories, sometimes in pretty small cups. So I realized pretty quick what I that it that I really have to stop eating drinking calories. I mean, it's really easy for me to drink a lot of fluid, like a soda pop or something. Anyway, this has been true for a long time. I've been going on for at least 5 years, maybe longer, of just drinking sugar-free drinks, and I think I've spoken about it a few times. But I'll tell you, there's one thing that I don't quite like about drinking these drinks is that I don't know if you can see, but this is the color purple, which is fine, but it's an artificial color, and I'm fine. Some of these drinks, these powdered drinks, have like super strong, super powerful, or super vivid colors. Like I've drank a pineapple drink. It's the color yellow. I mean, almost like perfect, like like a brilliant yellow. And then there's fruit punch. Fruit punch is the worst. It's like glow in the dark red. Many of the fruit punches I have drunk in the past. And of course, there's this one that's pretty purple, and although it's not as purple as it could possibly be, but there are a lot of other drinks that are as colorful as you could possibly make them. And sometimes I think about, okay, I notice that my body must be processing these artificial colors somehow. I'm guessing it's the liver. I don't know. Maybe the stomach acids break it down. I don't know. I don't know exactly where these colors come from, but um, I'm sure it's probably not easy for a human body to break down all these dyes, and so sometimes I wish that these drinks would just lay off on the colors. Man, a little bit of color is fine, but why go crazy? I mean, just totally crazy with some glow in the dark type colors. I don't know, man. I guess it depends on who you're marketing to. And my guess is these drinks are marketed towards kids mostly, and smart parents who don't want their kids to be drinking lots of sugar, which I totally can align with. Sugar is not necessarily a wonderful thing to have. It's particularly sugar. It's got a very high glycemic index. Not It's not really necessary. Most people in the world can do without it, especially given the obesity problem and the caloric surplus that most people eat every day. So, and of course, there's very little nutrition except for the glucose itself. Now, it's important to have glucose because our cells run on glucose, but you don't necessarily want an entire bolus of this glucose just infiltrating your intestines and your bloodstream in one fell swoop, in a very rapid way. So, I get it. I get it. It's kind of funny how human society is. Like we create a bugaboo, which is sugar, justified it's in many respects. But then we create another bugaboo to replace it, these artificial flavors and artificial sweeteners, which I'm grateful for. Thank you so much, artificial sweetener. Whatever food scientists are putting together these artificial sweeteners, thank you very much, because I get a lot of pleasure from it. I actually do have kind of a sweet tooth, and I spend a lot of time eating fruit. I like my apples and my bananas. I find them to be very, and oranges. I really enjoy oranges. Um, but you know, these artificial flavors, these artificial sweeteners, really help bring a lot of pleasure to my life, which I'm really grateful for. But of course, on the flip side, they are chemicals that, of course, as is everything. Everything in nature is a chemical. I'm a living, breathing basket of billions of chemicals right here in front of you. So all chemicals are not bad, certainly, but um, some of them, quite often, many of them, particularly these sweeteners, they have some data, but not maybe not a lot of it long term, like 50 years, 100 years of testing done on these sugars, all these artificial sweeteners, which is okay. Let me tell you, everything in life is a risk, and we do the best we can um, to find evidence supporting either good effects or ill effects, and we make the best judgment that we can in the moment. But anyway, I do want to congratulate and thank all the food scientists who have developed the sweeteners over the years. I was never a big fan of saccharin myself. The sweet and low, that's not my kind of sweetener. Way too bitter for me. But then along came other sweeteners, which I found affinity towards. There are some stevias which I enjoy. Some stevias I do not enjoy at all. I tend to enjoy Splenda much of the time. I find it to be very agreeable. But of course, then there are controversies surrounding these sweeteners related to, for example, in the case of Splenda, there's questions being raised about dementia and other things. Anyway, it's interesting to see also that I think some sweeteners, I don't know, I don't want to get into the details because I haven't necessarily researched that stuff recently. I'd only be drawing from memory, and I don't necessarily want to say anything patently false about sweeteners, since I know it's a somewhat of a controversial subject for some. But anyway, I just appreciate the food scientists and what they're doing to sort of help people enjoy the fruits of life, really the sugars of life, without having to deal with the actual sugar. There are actually a lot of sugars that I have not tried that I might be interested in trying out. There's some that you can get at the health food store. Well, it's kind of interesting. I in my day in my past have done some reading about sweeteners and about diet in general, and while a lot of it has been informative and I've learned a lot from lots of information that I've devoured, and what I'm noticing is it's not easy to come to consensus decisions. I can read a book and then that has a certain point of view, and then I'll read another book that will have the exact opposite point of view. And what's interesting is that the set of arguments that each book uses is equally as convincing, and it's kind of interesting how that works out. So let me just state right off that health science and deciding how to eat, it's a challenge even for people who seem to be well informed. I know I've had my challenges at times, and quite often I find myself just experimenting on myself. I know there was a time in my life where I had problems with high triglycerides. Also, a time in my life when I had problems with LDL cholesterol. To my knowledge, I no longer have those problems because of experimentation that I did, and a lot of the time, the answers had to do with losing weight and exercising, which I was glad to find out over time. Of course, you could only really get to know the answers when you do experiments on yourself only after plenty of testing and sort of trying to hit your numbers. I call it trying to hit my blood numbers. by switching things up, changing things around, cutting some foods out, putting some foods in to the diet. Also, behaviors and activities, and changing those up. Let me tell you, good health it's a lifelong journey, is what it is. And I'm thankful that I've been able to make some progress. Today, in fact, I was kind of feeling regretful because, I know some things about how my body works, and I have developed some patterns of behavior that help keep me on the straight and narrow. For example, like drinking non-caloric drinks. And I only wish I knew or had implemented these ideas earlier in my life. If I just had this stuff down, these habits down, these good habits down when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, or even just 18, 19, or even in my 20s, or even in my early 30s, wouldn't it have been great? One of the habits that I wish that I had acquired earlier than I did was working out regularly at the gym and doing weightlifting. In my previous videos, you might have seen that I typically try to weightlift 5 days a week, every weekday. And I've been doing that, well, pretty regularly for the last 6 months to a year. Before that, I was just less regular. And maybe I was doing it, maybe working out 2 or 3 times a week. But working out at the gym is actually somewhat of a new thing for me. I've probably only been doing it for 2.5, 3 years, which is not a long time. It's only 3 years. I'm basically 50 years old. So, I mean, if only I had the habits back then, the habits that I have today, my life would be so much different. It would be so much. I think it would be so much better. There was a lot of suffering throughout my 20s, 30s, and 40s, and I guess early 40s. 20s, 30s, and early 40s, when I really could have benefited from some of the habits that I have today. I guess hindsight is 2020, so to speak. I sort of, I think the most important habit. Now, actually, I have a lot of great habits. One of the habits that I developed as I came out of high school was a very studious. I was a very studious kid, a very studious nature, really focused on my studies. And let me tell you, that was definitely important. Also, growth mindset. I have a really strong growth mindset. Always interested in self-development, self-help, literature, and that's great. And also, really focused on improving my diet. I've had many kinds of diets over the years. For a little while, I did fruitarianism. Of course, I did veganism for a long, long time. I did 90-10-10, and I've also done other things like raw food diets. I've also done diets I'm not very proud of, like the low carb diets, the keto diets, which, in my view, are not optimal. They certainly are not optimal when it comes to getting your micronutrients. But anyway, I guess a lot of this stuff is just trial and error. And the older you get, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the better off your life is. Anyway, I sort of regret not just having what I know available to me when I was 20. I guess that's what being old is all about, right? Sort of somehow we've all got to reconcile this idea that when we were young, we just didn't know. We just didn't know. We didn't have the experience. And let me tell you, I think if I could have left high school, not only with being very studious and having a growth mindset, but if I could also have left high school with a regular exercise routine, weightlifting and cardio. If I could have had those 3 ingredients, my life would have turned out I got 2 of the 3, but I didn't have that third one, that exercise ingredient. If I had that exercise ingredient, I think my life would have turned out a lot differently. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Bye bye. Thanks for joining me.